Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Toward a Quality of Life. We're here in the month of December, right before Christmas. And I'm flanked on either side by two persons who work assiduously and arduously for the cause of animal welfare, for the cause of helping all the poor animals that end up in such unfortunate and miserable and suffering circumstances. Thank you very much for tuning in this evening, and I'm going to first talk about our most unusual and lovely guest this evening, who is a pit bull, a female pit bull, a very gorgeous creature. And you can't see her that well. Maybe we'll get some better shots of her as the show progresses. She says, "Hey, why are you asking me to get up right now? There's nothing exciting happening." I was looking for some excitement. She came here and she wanted to investigate everything, and she hasn't been able to. She's a very big dog, a very beautiful dog, a very clean dog, and a very loving dog. And her name is Charlotte. And her owner is Ms. Donna Bishop, who is founder, I'm going to read a little bio, founder and president of the Alliance for Animals, an organization that developed the first high-volume, low-cost veterinary spay-neuter clinic in the city of Boston, a place where you can go to spay and or neuter your animals at a very reasonable cost. And if you can, and go there even if you can afford more and donate that extra to such a great cause as this clinic. And this clinic that she set up set the trend for other humane organizations. What year did you set it up, Donna, please?
1996.
1996. The Alliance Clinic is at 232 Silver Street in South Boston, and has provided 55,000 low-cost spay, neuters, and veterinary services since its founding, as we heard, in 96. An Alliance shelter in Arlington placed at least 5,000 cats over 10 years, 5,000 stray cats, and now needs a new facility to buy in Dorchester. So if anyone is out there listening and can think of a place that would be good for the Alliance to set up in Dorchester to buy, please let us know. Adoption and humane education have put the Alliance for Animals in the forefront of local humane organizations. You can find them online, and I will give you that address at the end of the show in our edited versions. So I'll just tell it to you now, though you won't have it, afa.arlington.mass.us. And under petfinders.com, they are also listed under petfinders.com, and we also have a phone number, which is 617-268-7800. I will have that information for you in the edited version at the end of the show. Thank you very much for being here, Donna.
Thank you for having us.
Donna is a very, as are both of my guests, a very devoted caretaker and worker on behalf of animals, really dedicating her life to helping the unfortunate animals. To my left is Ms. Virginia Fuller, who again has been, I don't know if this bio would say it, but she has been in walk after walk, vigil after vigil, protest after protest, peaceful protest after protest on behalf of animals, educating, constantly serving, and dedicating her time and energy to helping animals. All three of us love animals, but both persons to the sides of me really put their life on the line for it. Virginia Fuller has worked in the field of animal advocacy for most of her life. She has worked for the MSPCA and in a veterinary practice, educating the public on the suffering associated with animal overpopulation. And we have a huge problem with overpopulation, and the importance of spaying and neutering and a variety of other animal issues. Virginia is up on, as are both my guests, all the terrible, cruel problems that confront animals. A strong proponent of animal rights, she was a key person in the trapping referendum in 1996 and to end greyhound racing in 2000, if you remember that referendum. She served for 6 years as the president of the Citizens to End Animal Suffering and Exploitation, the acronym of which is CEASE, C-E-A-S-E, and she's the current president of New England Wildlife. For more information about her work and her organization, you can contact CEASE at its website, which is ceaseboston.org, and we will have, again, that information in the edited version of this show. Now, at the moment, you may not be able to see this, but our guest star, Charlotte, the loving pit bull, and you see her there, very big, beautiful dog with Christmas regalia around her neck. She's crying because she wants to get busy with more exciting things to do of all the places to explore around the studio. I'm going to ask Donna now. Donna, what about pit bulls? How did you get Charlotte to begin with, and what do you want to tell us about pit bulls?
Well, Charlotte is the first pit bull that I ever rescued. A group of kids had rescued her from some other kids that I guess were mistreating her. And these were children in my neighborhood that were helping rescue animals because I'd been working with them. And they brought her to me, and it was the first pit bull. And I thought the same as everybody else about pit bulls. I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with this dog? She's going to eat my cats, or I don't know what she's going to do. And there wasn't any place to take her because everybody was afraid of pit bulls. So I took her to a dog trainer because I looked in her eyes and I saw a very gentle, gentle soul. And I felt in my heart that there couldn't possibly be any malice in this dog. But I wanted to be safe, so I took her to a trainer and had her evaluated. And even though he was also not wanting to like a pit bull, he fell in love with her. And so I did take her home, and I've had her for 8 years now. Nobody that has ever met Charlotte has failed to fall in love with her. But she's not unusual. Typical pit bulls are loving, gentle, cuddly, couch potato dogs. They're not even remotely like the image of a pit bull as tough and aggressive. Aggressive dogs are made aggressive because either they're inbred or more often they're tortured into becoming aggressive, becoming crazy, more or less.
How are they tortured? I mean,
they're starved so that they get food aggressive. They're burned. They're kept confined and tied. This dog had been tied to a door handle on a concrete walk for her whole life. She was afraid of trees. She'd never seen anything. She was emaciated. She had some scars on her. I don't know what all had happened to her, but clearly she had been mistreated. Even so, all the pit bulls that end up in shelters, those are all the dogs that didn't make it as fighters, because they're not normally fighters at all. They're totally the opposite. And in pounds everywhere in America are these dogs that are lonely and scared and depressed, and with just a little bit of human touch and a little bit of love, they blossom into these warm, cuddly, absolutely delightful dogs. I mean, this dog would never harm anybody. She loves children. She loves my 5 cats. She gets along with other dogs. She especially likes little dogs, and she tailors her play to them. And when she comes up with one of my other dogs who likes to rough and tumble and wrestle, then she does that. She's very sensitive. If I'm sick, she comes right to me. And as I said, though, this is not unusual. This is a typical pit bull who is happy and fun-loving and gentle and very cuddly. They're exceptionally cuddly dogs.
Can I add a point to that?
Yep.
Yes.
Which is that on the way to being tortured and trained to be a pit bull fighter, other animals are tortured along with the pit bulls.
Oh,
and that
yes.
could be kittens used
Right.
to train them.
Yeah.
So there's a
So that they become
exactly, so
animal
they become aggressive.
Yeah.
why do people do it? Do you know?
They do it for a couple of reasons. One is that they train the dogs to be ferocious and aggressive because they're protecting them in their drug trades. These are criminals. we're not talking about your average person in the neighborhood. We're talking about criminals here. They have drug activities, animal abuse is linked to crime, and also human abuse, domestic abuse, and child abuse. Also, they make money by staging fights. I think we heard recently about staging people fights. Well, they have dog fights, they have cock fights. They think of anything they can do to have an inexpensive overhead, which means animals, and they breed them specifically. So they typically will have a female dog down in the basement, never even sees the light of day, putting out litter after litter, which they sell. Some of the puppies, and some are used for bait, and some are used to train to become aggressive. But that's a tiny minority of pit bulls. Most of these dogs are mixes, and they are and they may have been neglected and unsocialized. They may not be adoptable at that point. At that point, we have no choice, unfortunately. They're the victims of terrible abuse and exploitation, and you have to put them to sleep if they're not going to be able to be out in the world among children and everybody else. But a typical pit bull loves children. Petey, the Little Rascals dog, was a pit bull. And up until the 80s, when they became fashionable as strong, aggressive dogs, they were known as a family dog.
We don't have a close-up of me, but I would like to just show another. I don't know if we could maybe switch to you, and I would just, if possible, if she were to hold this. I don't know if it's going to show very much. Oh, it's kind of glossy.
Yeah. One thing about this poster is that it's trying to highlight the fact that there are rewards available for anybody reporting dog fighting or people abusing or collecting pit bull or other fighting dogs all through America, and also in Boston. There are rewards for any tips leading to the arrest and probably conviction of people doing these things. And you know who they are. They're in the neighborhoods. And people are afraid of them because they are conducting criminal activity. But there are ways that you can do that anonymously. You can call the Alliance for Animals if you want to find out more about it. But that's how we can put an end to it and make all of us safer. It's not the dogs, it's the people.
She's zooming in on your poor pit bull.
Yeah,
and how
born
many...
to lose, and that's the truth.
And while she's zooming in, I think we'll also show, though it's not a pit bull, another example of the kinds of abuse where animals are used for fighting to the death.
Yeah, cockfighting, and all of these things are illegal.
And they should be reported if you know about...
Absolutely, absolutely, because you're not only talking about the animals, you're talking about all the people involved, and there are children in these areas and with these people, and that's what they're learning. They're learning total disregard for life. So it's for all of our sake. It's not only for these animals.
You see, and we'll hold one more. This is also sad, which says the final round. I don't know if we can get that. In other words, how many times have you seen on TV the pit bull being taken away because it bit a child? And there you go. That's the life. Starved, maimed, burned, treated unbelievably despicably, and then of course, then vicious, and then put to death as a final slap in the face.
But it's also an area of a great misunderstanding, because pit bulls and other dogs as well are very much misunderstood, and there's a lot of media hype about if 50 dogs did something, the pit bull's going to be the one that's going to be chosen to be put on the news. And so that's where people get misinformation, and it just cycles and cycles out of control until everybody's in hysteria about something that's not even factual. Pit bulls don't have special jaws. There's nothing else special about a pit bull except that they're actually real couch potatoes, and they'd much rather be in your home than out in somebody's yard tied to a tree.
Now, how can we get out of this dilemma of should people look into, well, first of all, should people buy dogs, or should they go to the shelters to adopt them, number one? And if they should go to the shelters to adopt them, should they be involving themselves? Should they be looking for a pit bull? How do we get out of the dilemma where, unfortunately, many of the pit bulls that are out there are creatures that have been brutally destroyed?
Well, the first is spay-neuter, because right now there's an extremely serious overpopulation problem for pit bulls in every city in America, and that includes Boston. Most of the dogs at the pound are going to be pit bulls. And so the first line is spaying and neutering and trying to reduce that overpopulation, that very easy access to a pit bull to then exploit and use. We have at the Alliance for Animals a special program for spaying and neutering pit bulls, and also helping people get obedience and good citizenship training for their dogs, so that pit bulls that we take in or spay and neuter can go out and be the good citizens that people are going to see out on the street, rather than the ones that are running wild and not making a good impression. The second is education. Education about who dogs are and what they need. You cannot take a dog, any dog, but especially a pit bull, and isolate them, confine them, and not socialize them, and also not neuter them, because then you're asking for trouble. The dog should be able to be in the home, being a family member and acting like a good-mannered family member. And they are very needy. They want to be around people all the time. So when you confine and isolate a dog like this, they're very sensitive, and they are even more prone than other breeds of dogs to become depressed and nervous. So they're more sensitive. They need more love.
They need a lot of companionship.
Yeah, they really crave that companionship. And so it's education and reducing that population, and adopting from shelters, definitely.
So if you live in an apartment, or if you or a house, and your your lifestyle is to be away a lot, that's not good to have a pit bull.
No, unless you have another dog. You know, if they can have a companion of some sort.
But to be left alone and
all
have
day,
you go up, not
no,
good. They
no.
want to be around something.
Yeah, they're very
gregarious.
They're very people oriented. As a matter of fact, it's unusual. It's highly unusual for a pit bull actually to be aggressive toward a human being. They actually were bred for fighting other dogs, and specifically not people. It's just that if you drive somebody crazy, and especially a little child, a dog often interprets as another dog. They don't realize it's a small human being. But they're basically extremely people-friendly. And that's what scares some people. A dog like this would, if she could do whatever she felt like it, she would run up to everybody and jump up and lick their face. But of course, if people think pit bulls are lunging and trying to injure them, then they get scared, even though the dog only intended to be friendly. So there's a lot of misreading of animal behavior.
Well, we are all scared of pit bulls. I love animals, and I'm scared of pit bulls. But so you would never go and pet a pit bull, but like you said, you'd never go and pet any dog.
Right. You don't go to any
never...
strange dog. Yeah, I mean, you could have a little pug or something. You wouldn't walk up. They might get scared because a hand coming at them that they don't know is just not something anybody should do. And if somebody is walking a dog on a leash, it's polite to ask, "May I pet your dog?" And they can decide whether it's going to be how that dog will be receptive.
Like sometimes I'll say to people, you know, the dog wants to be whatever, and I say, I don't really know, you know, I don't want to just go and put my hand.
Yeah.
And people say, oh, don't worry. Well, you should, even if an owner says so, you should kind of feel an animal out before you're just going to go and put your hand,
Right. Yeah.
So
but that's every dog.
So now we have to be we have to be reporting the people that we know are abusing pit bulls or any animal.
Any animal.
Or any children or anybody.
And we have to remember, again, animal abuse goes with human abuse. Most criminals, serial killers, they've had many studies making the connection between animal abuse and then future crime against human beings, future violence. So it's a very important indicator of a problem that needs to be solved sooner rather than later.
Was it Jeffrey Donner that was
Yeah.
cool? I mean, many of
Yes,
them are
yes.
in the
They
background.
almost all of them have been. I want to make one other point, actually. Virtually all of the dog attack incidents involving pit bulls in America, there have been many studies about this, involved unneutered male dogs who had been confined and unsocialized and then somehow got loose, or who were tied to something and someone came at them and they were defending themselves. All of them. So obviously the first thing is neuter, neuter, neuter. It's unneutered male dog roaming.
Now, you said the shelter is full of, if there's one dog the shelters have, it's the pit bull. And, of course, people don't want to adopt the pit bull.
Right, so it's a vicious cycle.
And a lot of them get put down.
Most of them get killed, yeah.
And but you're saying that most of them that are aggressive come from people involved in criminal activity?
Yes.
Most are?
Or have been, like I said, unneutered and unsocialized. In other words, neglected. And that's another form of abuse, but it's different than deliberately training someone to fight. That's a very
The deliberate
tiny,
ones are the
tiny
criminals.
fraction. Right, and that's a very small fraction of the number of dogs
The
that
drug
you see
traders and
outside.
all that, and the ones that want to
Right.
be in the sport of having vicious...
Exactly.
Yeah, and then the
Or
ones
want to
that
look tough going down
don't
the
know.
street.
Why would people buy a pit bull and then neglect it, especially knowing about the reputation that pit bulls have? You know, I mean...
I've always wondered why people get dogs and keep them in their yard. I've never understood, why would you get a dog who's supposed to be man's best friend, and you like them because they like you, and then put them in your yard? So no matter who the dog is, that's what the most cruel thing you can do to a dog. A dog is a pack animal. They want to be with the pack, and your family is their pack. And so... a pit bull, same thing. They put them in the yard because they think they're going to look ferocious, but a tied-up animal, I don't understand how that would be a deterrent, because you just walk past them, you know, or you throw them a steak or
Guard
something.
dog.
It doesn't make any sense, but I think they just want to look tough because they have
Hey,
barking
it doesn't
dogs.
help in the movies when they do things
That's
about
right.
animals that are
Right.
totally out of the question. I'm thinking of that Doberman that they drop on a car in a Chevy Chase movie. I love
I've-
Chevy Chase,
yeah.
but geez, that kills me.
Yeah.
That kills me
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah.
All right, so a lot of these poor pit bulls go down, and a lot of broken hearts must live and work at animal shelters. Human hearts.
Absolutely.
Human hearts.
Right.
Maybe you'd like to say something
Well,
about
I think
that.
it's something we don't always think about. People like Donna and me are working so hard to try to cut down on the numbers of euthanasias and to increase the numbers of spay-neuter. But one of, I would say, people who are the unsung heroes of all of this are the shelter workers, who are called upon, when there is no alternative, to take the life of a healthy animal, an animal that may not have behavioral problems, may be young, may be placeable, and over time that builds up, and it's a very destructive thing to have to deal with. To me, they're the unsung heroes. I think it's a job that is, no one could pay you enough to have to do that.
How much do they get paid? Do you know?
I would guess mid-teens per hour. I don't really know that.
Uh-huh.
It might be more. Donna, do you have any idea about that?
I suspect it's less than that.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, they have to be trained. There are euthanasia workshops in organizations like the MSPCA and the Animal Rescue League and any accredited organization, and well, there should be, because nobody wants people putting animals down without knowing the quickest, most humane, most effective way to do it. And now animals are customarily tranked before they are given the final shot. Nevertheless, euthanasia workshops are an important component. But the fact we have to do this, that we have to take the lives of animals who are eminently placeable, is a heartbreak. And do we make progress? Perhaps over years. 10, 15 years ago, it might have been that in this country we took the lives of 13 million animals per year, cats and dogs. It's decreased now, thanks to a lot of humane education about spay and neuter, to perhaps between 6 and 8 million. So we've made progress.
You're saying 6 and 8 million have to be put down per year in this
country alone.
6 to 8 million animals.
Cats and dogs, many of whom are bright-eyed kittens and puppies.
That's right.
So don't always think the pit bull with a behavior problem or the older animal for which there's not another alternative. They can be young, healthy, eminently placeable in every way.
Just nobody there to adopt
No, but
them.
not enough homes. It's that simple.
And that's because there are more animals born by magnitudes every year than there are people. So you can see right away that the arithmetic, it's like musical chairs. It just doesn't work out. There are vastly more animals, and it's every person's job to stop that simply by spaying and neutering their pet and looking around at their neighbors and friends and relatives and making sure they do the same. And low-cost spay-neuter is available virtually everywhere. There's no reason anymore not to get your pet spayed or neutered.
This is a show and tell. I don't think it's going to show on camera, but nevertheless, I brought it along just to make the point that an unneutered cat having 4 kittens, none of them being neutered, and each kitten proceeding to do what comes naturally, over merely a year and a half can result in give or take 54 kittens, and none of them are spayed or neutered, so even the 2 that are female, which is part of this equation, are balanced by the 2 that are male that are out there doing what comes naturally. So that's quite a statistic. In a year and a half, 1 female cat can produce 54 kittens.
Yeah, so now, do these people who, so what is a cheap spay and neuter? What would be considered a low rate?
There are availability of rates here in Boston and around the country between $25 and $50, depending on one's income and et cetera. But $50 is easily obtained.
And I had someone else speaking on the show who thought you should be prepared for the eventuality of extremely costly veterinary bills and all this. Mm-hmm. Is that necessary, or can the average person just pay these minimal fees and get the shots and get the spay and neutering and you know, let the chips fall where they may, even if they can't afford humongous veterinary bills that could happen by chance?
Well, that's the thing. If you commit to an animal, yes, you pay for the vaccines.
Yes.
Some of which are required, like rabies. The others are certainly part of the picture of having a healthy pet. And you spay and you neuter. But you can't predict what else may happen. There may be an illness. If the cat is allowed to go out, for example, there may be an injury, hit by a car, whatever. So you can't predict that, Nancy. Whatever goes along with loving an animal and wanting to give it good care can't be deferred, certainly.
I think that very often people say to us, because we have low-cost veterinary care, well, they shouldn't have pets if they can't afford da-da-da. Mm-hmm. The problem is that prices in the last 5 years throughout the country for veterinary medicine have gone up approximately 700%. That has put most services out of the reach of the average person. Having a companion animal should not be a luxury only for the rich. Animals need people, and people need animals. And the reason that it's important to have affordable veterinary care is that, yes, you do have to take responsibility for the life that you have taken on, whether it's your child or your pet. But at the same time, I think that people need to have affordable services that will allow senior citizens, families struggling. You know, they need
even children need an animal. I mean, if they're the loving kind that want them, this is
it's good for them.
Completely significant life event to have an animal to love.
Absolutely.
And for many seniors, this is their whole world. This is their companionship, their comfort, their security. And on a fixed income with Social Security, there is no way in the world. So that's why we have, and other places around the country are trying now to provide this additional service besides spaying and neutering. That's the first step of taking care of an animal. And then the next step is guiding them through a healthy life, learning about how to take care of them, and then allowing them to come and receive those services at an affordable rate.
At your clinic?
Yes.
And are there
That's what we do.
Yeah. There are other clinics that do that too?
Not around here.
No, I don't think so.
No, there aren't. That's one of the reasons that we're looking for a new site, because we've outgrown the clinic we're in, and the demand is so high for care, emergency care and chronic care for animals, and we need a bigger facility so that we can provide all of these services to the many people who need them.
Those of you who love animals and yet can't have them, don't have the lifestyle, don't really care to have them but adore them, as do I, and have some extra funds, please think of Alliance, is it Alliance for Animals?
For Animals.
Alliance for Animals, Donna's a clinic in South Boston. Please, think of if you ever wanted to give money for a worthwhile cause, please think of Alliance for Animals in South Boston, and in the edited versions we will have the information of how to get in touch with them. Help these critters. So a lot of animals are put down. You said 6 to 8 million a year are put down. Many of them perfectly. I remember once going to a shelter. I can't bear to go into a shelter, so I'm just chicken.
No, it's very hard
I'm just
to go into a shelter.
Person.
I think Donna would agree with me.
It's hard. I mean,
it's a necessary evil.
And I, saw the eyes of a perfectly good-looking German Shepherd seem to say, knowing hope, there was no hope against hope, but sort of saying maybe, but being cool and shrewd enough to know he was in a he was in a death situation. He was in the throes of disaster. And, give me that sort of look that maybe this one might, that, and I mean, I couldn't get rid of the guilt, even maybe to this day, of the look in that animal's eye. I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
I think a lot of us have experienced
I'm guilty.
That.
What does a person do? Bring him home and let him run the streets or whatever? I mean, I'm guilty. I let that dog go down, a beautiful German Shepherd.
Well, you had the courage to do that and carry that memory. And the thing is that somebody else took that little puppy. And
it was a full-grown.
Said it was, well, no, he began as a puppy.
Yeah,
All of these animals in the shelter began as cute puppies and kittens that somebody said they wanted, and somebody said to themselves, I've gotten a good home for this puppy or kitten. Those are the dogs and cats that are in the shelter now that are adults because they got tossed out when they got bigger. And
what you said there
them.
Makes a perfect bridge to another topic. Yeah. You talk about a German Shepherd was a specific breed. And certainly, one point is that the all-breed rescue people are doing a great job, or certainly trying to, starting with the Golden Retriever people, to try to help and take the load off shelter people by taking out purebreds and trying to place them through their own networks, which is certainly a contribution to the whole issue. The other issue is that of puppy mills, which continue to crank out purebreds. In the Midwest, in states like Missouri, the bitch is raised on wire. They're not clean facilities. They're not safe facilities. They crank out litters and litters of puppies, which by definition are sick, and are shipped wherever. And
to Petco?
Well, I don't think we should specifically.
I shouldn't name a name,
but no, Petco doesn't sell.
Co.
Yeah.
Wolf & Co. is a big enterprise here that imports literally millions of puppies around the country.
Petco does not sell dogs and cats at the present.
Oh, that's right.
But they certainly do sell birds, and they certainly should be held accountable, yes. But they come to whatever pet shop they come to. Sick animals that spread disease, that are ill when they're taken by people who fall for that face, as you did with the German Shepherd. Then they may be ill and cost thousands of dollars if the person's committed. Otherwise, they're returned to the pet shop. And I think we're pretty sure that they don't get a second chance for a home. Wouldn't you agree with that, Donna?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they come back, and that's the death knell for the puppy mill dog that doesn't make it, that isn't healthy.
Also, because they've been removed from their mothers so early, they lack socialization, both canine socialization that's so important that they get by being with their mother and their litter mates, and then also the human socialization that they've lacked because they haven't been in a home where it had any real human contact. This is merchandise.
I was telling Donna about a story that encapsulates all the no-nos of shelter work. For example, the animal that's too young, as she just said, that has lacked the mother's input. I heard about a young man and spoke with him yesterday who had adopted, because Christmas was coming and it was important, a 6.5-week-old Roddy baby. And he has,
Roddy means Rottweiler. Yes.
And this young man has 2 children, a girl age 2, a boy age 5. No reputable shelter would have allowed him to adopt a puppy, nor would they have had a puppy that young. But this puppy came through the puppy mill network, and he's adopted the puppy, brought it home. Already it has scratched the little girl and broke her skin. And he asked me if it was good that he was hitting it on the nose and yelling no. And I tried to make him see that he was dealing with not one but two babies, that he should never let the little girl pick up that rotty baby, that puppy, and that what he needed most of all was veterinary input, not just for the vaccines and the things that were necessary for the puppy's health, but also behavioral training input, puppy kindergarten, things like that, to train this dog, and until he gets to that point, to be very careful about letting those small children interact with the puppy unless he's present and keeps it crated the rest of the time. That's a start.
I'd actually like to bring up one other point. Over the past probably 15 years or so, shelters and others have begun to do what we call juvenile spay-neuter. And this is probably the most significant thing we could possibly do to prevent all these unwanted litters. They very often happen because people don't realize the cat is old enough, and they become pregnant and they've got that litter. Or people are under the false idea that a cat or a dog needs to have a first litter. Actually, that only increases their risk of later getting breast cancer.
Third reason, to show the children the miracle of birth.
Right, yeah, which we could get into a whole other thing about the mistakes about that. But the idea is that people should be aware that we can now safely and effectively do spaying and neutering at 8 weeks of age for cats and dogs. It's actually safer to spay and neuter when they're younger because they need less anesthesia, they wake up better, they respond better. And what I find actually is that maybe the most significant issue is that they don't have any stress. They come to the vet and they're running around the cage playing and having a great time. Even at 6 months, the cats and dogs are stressed by being at the veterinarians. So for a host of reasons, also the ability to really give them a good checkup and shots and all the rest, get them early started on the training with the vet, we definitely recommend and want to make sure people realize juvenile spay-neuter is the thing to do. Don't have those unwanted litters.
Studies have shown that there are no hormonal or otherwise negative
no side
impacts.
Effects. Contrary to what you might hear,
exactly.
The literature and the studies that have been conducted by the most widely accepted places like Cornell University have defined for years that there are no negative side effects at all.
Well, we don't want to get into feral because we want to still get more information just on some of the focal points we've been making. But in terms of spay-neuter, should people try to bring stray cats and have them spayed or neutered and then let them go even if they weren't going to keep them?
Yeah, absolutely. Feral cats should not be tamed, forced to come into a human environment and try to be tamed. There are so many abandoned stray animals that are desperate for a home. A feral cat is a cat that's shy and unsocialized, and they're afraid of you. But because there are burgeoning millions of them out there who started with somebody's pet that was not spayed, and they let them go outside, they got pregnant. The kittens that were born never knew a human being. We have traps, humane traps, that you put food in, they walk in, the door closes. You bring them to the clinic, we spay or neuter them, we give them their rabies shot, we make sure they're healthy, you take them back where they were. And they can continue living the life they've been living. We wish everybody could be an indoor cat, and someday maybe they will. But for now, the best we can do is everybody you see in the neighborhood, get them in there and get them spayed, because next thing you know, you're going to have a colony in your neighborhood, which is going to be much harder to deal with. If everybody does their part in their little neighborhood, that would change it for everybody.
And a person from the Animal Rescue League had told me that cats seem to be much less favored by the public than dogs. That cats are thought of as more disposable, more not, who cares, than a dog.
I think they say a dog will take your call and a cat will take your message and get back to you. People say that, but I think studies recently have shown that cats are the more popular pet. Convenience, people are mobile now, they go and travel so much, and cats are easier. Don't you have the sense, Donna, that cats have passed dogs?
Yes.
In popularity?
Cats, yes, in terms of the cat or dog-owning public, there are more cats. But in terms of how much money people are willing to spend on their pets, dogs are ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, and people are more likely to get their dogs veterinary care than cats. People are more likely to have deliberately adopted a dog, whereas the majority of people who have cats have them because the cat picked them.
Yes, that's true. Sort
Cats
of by
do
default.
pick you.
Yes.
Cats do pick you. Yes, they
That's
do.
true.
We
Yeah.
had one that came out of the woods and was just looking at us going, I'm starving. I'm
Right.
starving. If you don't help me now,
They come
I'm
and
going
get
to
you.
die.
Yeah,
And it was
And
probably
what else?
true.
Yes. And what else can you do?
right.
No,
You know?
absolutely.
And then they have you. But each one, the dog, the cat, in my opinion, is an infinite wonderland to watch,
Oh,
observe.
God.
Try to imagine, try to fathom, try to dig. You just can't. You can't even dig it. You know what I mean? There's never. It's an ongoing thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
I couldn't imagine
can't
it
imagine
Endless
it.
sorts of
without having them.
entertainment.
Can't imagine
watching
it.
Animals.
You can't imagine what.
Yeah.
what
Entertainment,
Things that they
companionship,
do. Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And so dogs are very social creatures, as are cats, believe it or not. We can't get into the different ways that they are. But so you can't be leaving dogs alone or rearing them in isolation or expecting.
That's really the cruelest thing you can
in
do
other
to
words,
a dog.
in other words, it's not just a lot of the genetic so-called and physical characteristics, but it's behavior that we're kind of
Right.
blind to, that we don't understand what kind of environments and interactions animals need
Right.
to be normal, so to
So
speak.
even people who mean well may be creating an unsocialized, untrained dog, which, okay, when they're a puppy you say, oh, that's cute, but when they get to be big and they're pulling you down the street, or they're jumping on the table, or they're playing mouthy games
Yeah.
that they did as a puppy, that's no good.
Right.
Or they've been left out in the yard so they're not housebroken. I mean, a dog can be housebroken extremely readily if you just try. You teach your child, you need to teach your animals the same way.
And a lot depends on the individual animal. I have 4 dogs, and one of them would be very happy not seeing any other dogs. He's a people person. On the other hand, one of my dogs was feral, and she simply does not exist if the other dogs are not with her. If they go somewhere and she's alone, it's like she's terrified until they're back again. So there's a wide range, I think, of dog personalities. Not every dog will be miserable alone, but some will be.
Absolutely. Yes, that's true. Of course, people can adopt dogs and who work.
Yeah,
But
not everybody
first of all,
can have
it needs
more
to be
than
an
one.
adult dog, not a puppy, because puppies need supervision and care and training. But an adult dog who you can talk to the people at the shelter or the person you're adopting from and find out, have they been left alone for how long? And if they're not used to being left alone, you can nevertheless train them how to be alone. But other people do things like they come home at lunchtime. We've known people that hired nannies.
Well, there's puppy
They can
playgroup.
go to doggy
It's quite
daycare.
popular.
Oh
Doggy
my
daycare.
God, when I
All these-
ever saw the school bus with the dogs,
Yes.
each in its own seat, properly coming home. Oh.
Or people walking
Those
5 and 6
are
in the
very,
back bed.
privileged families that,
Yeah.
every time I see the 6 coming down with the caretaker,
Yeah.
I just have to stop, and there's the picture. And they're all so well behaved, it boggles the mind. In my opinion, I'm in the country a lot. City dogs are better behaved. Generally, they
Kind of have to be.
they have to
That's
be, and they're just, I don't know, they're more aware of what to do.
each dog
they're
is
different.
unique.
They're different.
Each
I guess
dog
they're
is unique.
Everybody's
urbanized.
different.
But this idea that they have to be, dogs and cats have to be in social kind of behavioral circumstance, and we can't get into cats right now, but so that. And like you were saying, they need guidance and structure.
Yes.
They don't, the dogs that it's okay to jump on you all over the place, that's not cool.
No, it's not cool. It's not good for anybody. If you're letting your dog be a nuisance to other people, you're contributing to the problem of dogs being given up. And most of the dogs in shelters, aside from the pit bull issue, have been given up because they were improperly trained, or they just plain weren't trained. So they were doing things that bother people, but it was the people who allowed them to do that.
Sometimes the owners don't mind, but it's like
Right.
if you visit a family whose kids are running all over the place, spilling
Yes.
stuff, and they don't notice it, but everybody else does.
Yes, it's the same.
The dog doesn't want that. They really don't want
right.
to be just left to do whatever they, like children, really do
No,
not want total, absolute freedom.
That's right. And a dog, again, is a pack animal. A dog expects to have a leader of the pack. And when somebody isn't in control, then they're anxious because they're like, okay, who's the boss here? What am I supposed to do? Where's my place? And if they have to spend all their time worrying about that, they're going to be anxious. Whereas if they are in a well-disciplined, loving, affectionate, positive reinforcement home, where certain manners and ways are expected and ways of behaving with strangers and outside on the leash or whatever, then you have a happy, healthy, mentally healthy dog, and you have a good dog, and that can be a pit bull. That applies to pit bulls and everybody else. Yes,
an integrated dog. An integrated dog. We don't have much time remaining. I'm going to want to mention about the plates, but before that, what about buying pets versus adopting them at shelters? I could be wrong. I say, why buy a pet? Why go for the pure breed? Go to the shelter.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I think at the shelter you have a choice of animals that are large or small, though there's certainly more large ones now than small, but different combinations of breeds. Certainly the mixed breed dog has a lot to be said for it.
I love mixed breed dogs.
All of mine are mixed breed.
They're healthier.
And they're healthier, and they have different qualities from whatever genetic input they have. But then again, if you're talking purebreds, some people are talking about breeders, but most people are talking about pet shops. So we're back to the puppy mill issue. Mm-hmm. And I can't see how anyone in good conscience could spend money to buy into that kind of a market.
Right. Because
I'll get no argument from you.
It's using live beings as merchandise.
Yes.
And that's just an appalling concept when you really think about it. It doesn't sound different to me than slavery or anything else where you think someone is a living being can be just a commodity for profit. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. And shelter animals are, anybody who has ever been around them knows that anybody who's been abandoned, a cat or a dog, they are so grateful to you. They're so happy that you have rescued them, and they realize that. They understand that they're sitting in that row hoping somebody's going to come for them. Well, and they're going to reward you the rest of their lives.
That's right, and there's an array of support, too, for people, especially, I think, in terms of behavioral advice. When there's a problem like that, I think we're much quicker now to seek out behavioral input. And you can nip problems, pardon for the pun, early in the game by taking an animal to a behaviorist, just getting some input. Shelter staff are well-versed in that sort of thing and giving advice and matching people up with the appropriate animal.
And shelters in Massachusetts now, all the animals that are adopted from shelters are already spayed or neutered. They're microchipped, they've had all their veterinary care, they've had their vaccinations, they've been checked for heartworm and feline leukemia. So at a pet shop, you're not getting any of that. They might have gotten one shot when they were too young to have it, but they are not spayed or neutered. There's nobody tries to see if you would be a good responsible pet owner. It's just a piece of merchandise. So
mandatory sterilization has been on the books since the mid-'80s, as I recall, and it's one of the biggest steps we ever made.
We're all spaying and neutering before adoption. So you get an animal that's already happy and healthy and taken
People,
care of.
Again, I would say to you, those of you who are affluent enough to spend a few dollars charitably, please give some money to the Alliance for Animals, and we'll have their information at the end of the show. Please, it would be a very good cause, even if you cannot. And I know I've heard there's things like foster caring, the animal rescue, foster care, take an animal in just to foster care it through an illness. And there are so many things you can do without having to commit if your lifestyle doesn't permit it, or for whatever reason. And we know you love animals. We know most people love animals. We love animals, and there's so much we don't see, not seen, we don't see. We don't have to go through the depression of the people that are faced with euthanizing and seeing all this horrible misery come through the door every day, and we don't have to face it, but it exists, and that's the point of bringing this to you. I'd like to mention license plates now in Massachusetts that are going to be available for purchase, which will the funds of which will be going towards helping places such as the Alliance for Animals and other places that are shelters and clinics for animals. And when we get a chance here, we may be able to get a screen on. Should we maybe have Donna hold it?
Sure.
Would that be good,
Have a cat
Aisha?
and a dog one.
To have
Cat
Donna
hold the
hold
dog.
it? Okay. I hold it? Okay. All right. Both of us too right here? Okay. All right. So we have, you can explain, Donna, what we have.
We have an animal-friendly license plate now available. You can go to the registry tomorrow and pick it up. The funds is for spaying and neutering, and the funds will go only to nonprofit organizations providing low-cost spay-neuter and towns who don't have any budgets for spaying and neutering animals in their towns and lack all funds. They will go strictly to those agencies, and they will be used strictly for spaying and neutering animals that need that help. So all the money for the license plate, the first year you get the license plate, it's like the whale plate and other plates. $28 of the $40 that you spend will go to these organizations. The second, when you renew, the entire $40 amount will go directly and 100%. There's no administrative costs. The Massachusetts Animal Coalition will be administering those funds, and they will be done by grant proposals. And we can guarantee you, because I'm a member of that as well, that 100% of those funds are going directly to those agencies for spaying and neutering and nothing else. It's really important, and it's an absolutely beautiful plate.
It's a wonderful way, and look at these cute animals. It's a wonderful way to circulate the idea that we care about animals, and we're not going to stand for the mistreatment and general neglect and abuse that's going on in the culture. And so it's a way to for a few bucks to have a huge potentiating effect on bringing some light onto this very dark area that we really do care about. We just don't see it, and so we don't know enough to do more about it.
There is another message, subliminal message here. The numbers picked for the license plates, this is 725K, which is 1,000. That's the number of homeless animals in Massachusetts during the past year. And the one that Nancy is holding has 6 million, which is the amount of money spent for services to homeless animals in the past year.
So there have been 725,000 homeless animals in this state alone?
In this state.
In this state alone this year. And it's cost $6 million to try to... You can't see the plates up close, but and we won't be able to get it here, but there's a beautiful cat and dog silhouette in the sunset, sort of, on the plate, so it's going to make your car look really cool, too. And if you love animals and you want to do something for them, you'll be coming off as a really cool human being.
That's right.
All right, so we're at the conclusion of two very wonderful guests who really dedicate themselves to what can't be a very pretty undertaking for the most part. Love, deep love, and along with that love comes an awful lot of suffering. The other side of the coin, deep love. We love animals. Please look up the addresses. Please give money to the Alliance for Animals. You'll have that information at the end of the show as the edited versions come out. You will see them. And please, we love animals. Spread the word. Spay and neuter. Tell your friends. Report any abuses of people or animals. We love them. Get the animals out of the laboratory. Help the stray animals. Get the animals out of the laboratory. We love animals. We love animals. Bless you. Thank you. And good night.